I was living with two men in a full relationship, my husband and my boyfriend. And someone says, "Oh, you're polyamorous." I went, "What's that?"
It's accepting that love isn't like an exclusive thing that only belongs to one person at a time. It's that we have a lot of love to give and we can give it in a lot of different directions.
Polyamory, yeah, the classic definition is loving many. I highlight on the amory, not the poly, because it doesn't matter the number. It's all about the love and caring.
Everyone should have their own ability to like see the frameworks of love and decide for themselves what works and doesn't work. I think it was just like this confliction of like, I find many people attractive and I want to act on that, but externally that feels wrong. And I've always hated being told what to do, especially by like people in like positions of authority and power. And it feels like I'm being told to feel a certain way, but I didn't consent to like that.
Yeah, monogamy made me feel trapped. It was not that I was just wanted to like go sleep with other people or something. It wasn't like I was like trapped just because of that. I felt trapped in that I felt like I couldn't want things for just myself. I felt like I was a bad person for wanting to do things as an individual.
Society really like values and makes the couple ideal. As a single person, you're worth less, and like, all the pressures of like you should be married, and like then you get insurance and you get this and this and that. And if you're single, then people like see you as a failure.
So I think that's like the biggest struggle is there's all these ways we've been conditioned, but like who is conditioning us and why, and like for what benefit? And so once you scrape beyond the surface, there's so much more to like give and receive.
Hi, I'm Daley.
Hi, I'm Berk, and we've been together for just about 2.5 years, and we met on Tinder.
I've been non-monogamous probably around 3 years or so.
And I've been non-monogamous for about 8 years now.
My name is Amy. I am 26 years old. I live in Salt Lake City, and I have been polyamorous for about 3 years now. I first was introduced to the idea of non-monogamy after I got divorced. So I was married very young. I was married about 20 and divorced 2 years later. And after that, I realized that I didn't really want to be monogamous anymore, but I wasn't exactly sure what that looked like. And so I just set out just with an open mind to explore the options that were out there. And I started with more of an open relationship and then met more and more people through that who were practicing these different styles of non-monogamy, and eventually came to realize that I am more naturally polyamorous and that I naturally want to and am able to be in love with or care for many people at the same time.
My name's Ariel. I use she, her pronouns.
So my name's Chris. Originally was born actually and grew up in the Ogden Canyon area. Now obviously we're in South Ogden. So I use they, them pronouns. And yeah, we've been polyamorous for about 5, maybe 6 years.
My name's Jackie Campbell. I am from St. George, Utah. I've grown up in Utah most of my life, but not originally from St. George. My hometown is Ogden. How long have I been polyamorous? Oh my gosh, over 25 years. I cobbled my idea of non-monogamy. I just called it open many, many years ago. I was about 24 when my partner of 6 years cheated on me. And it forced me to actually really look pretty deep inside and determine, what was it that bothered me. And when I was thinking about it, I'm trying to rescue our relationship. Was it that he cheated? Was it the sex? No. When it came right down to it, a lot of self-introspection said it was because it was someone I trusted. I believed every word he said, and he betrayed my trust. And then I'm like, well, there has to be a better way. And then I just started dating, but I started dating under this new philosophy, this idea, and I told everyone, I'm not exclusive. And these are the people that I'm dating. You can know or you don't have to know, but I'm not exclusive with you. Are you okay with that? And anyone that dated me was just fine, because if they weren't fine with it, I didn't date them.
I'm Ben.
I'm Sabrina.
I'm Allie.
And we're from West Jordan, Utah. We've been together for 6 years?
6.5.
6.5 years. Mm-hmm. Well, you two met first.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And then I met...
Saving.
Yeah. You met through work, and then I met Allie through you. We've kind of been together ever since.
Yeah, with some ups and downs.
Here and there.
Yeah, I walked away a couple times, just from your typical fears of, how family's gonna react, or just all of that stuff, really.
Growing up in this monogamous man and woman box, it was confusing, and I didn't know how to sort through any of it.
The idea of compulsory monogamy or default monogamy, why is this what society has defaulted to or does continue to default to? Everyone should have their own ability to see the frameworks of love and decide for themselves what works and doesn't work.
I think as you start dating in a lot of monogamy, and then you start kind of getting away from monogamy, you start realizing the things that you loved about monogamy were more the quality that came with monogamy. But the portrayal of monogamy within film, within society, a lot of times is toxic. A lot of those constructs are about controlling, about limiting people's ability to be themselves. That we should be really separating toxic masculinity or toxic monogamy away from healthy relationships. And I think that should be really the battle that we're looking at.
When many people hear the term polyamory, they think of polygamy, especially in Utah because of the history of the LDS religion, aka the Mormons. But the two couldn't be more different. Polygamy, as it has existed in Utah, is the practice or custom of one man being married to more than one wife at the same time. In the late 1800s, the LDS settlers, aka Mormon pioneers, brought the tradition of polygamy to the Utah Territory. It was practiced by the founder of the LDS religion, Joseph Smith, and was continued for half a century. The LDS prophet and first governor of Utah, Brigham Young, is well known for having been polygamous. Splinter groups of the LDS Church continue to practice polygamy today, but the practice was banned from mainstream Mormonism and made illegal in 1890. In contrast to that tradition, polyamory is the practice of engaging in multiple relationships with the consent of all the people involved. It can look like many things and is defined differently by each practitioner. Polygamy and polyamory may sound similar, but the two are each other's antithesis. Where polygamy in Utah was a patriarchal structure, polyamory is egalitarian. I think often people assume that men are centered when it comes to polyamory. If I go out with one of my male partners and one of my female partners, even if they're both my partners, they're both dating me and not each other, people will assume that that man is at the center of things. And that couldn't be further from the truth of the way that myself and many other polyamorous women or non-binary people date, is that it's it's not that way at all.
I won't speak for Utah, but Salt Lake City, there is like a really strong subculture here. I think a lot of people that are like ex-Mormon or whatever feel like they have to push back exponentially harder than the average person would in coming to terms with all of these things. Having like previously lived in Louisiana for a few years and like been non-monogamous out there, like it was really unheard of, and I didn't really meet too many people that were non-monogamous. And I moved here, and I just every day I meet more and more. Like there's a lot of poly people here. It's quite surprising, yeah. So
we see, at least in Utah, a lot of ex-Mormons who have left the church who are now practicing polyamory because they're getting that opportunity to explore their sexuality and to see what that looks like. And it may still be in a heteronormative context, but it's a way for people to finally be like, you know, I'm allowed to try this, and I don't have these restrictions on me anymore necessarily.
We had been together for 2 years, and the only people that knew were like our really close friends. And all three of us had gone to like a Christmas game night thing to my ex-stepmom's house. My stepmom found it very weird that Allie was sitting between me and Ben. And these two decided to touch each other's thighs underneath the table. That one was touching her thigh underneath the table. And so I went to pick up Emery from her house like a couple weeks after that. And she goes, I need to ask you a question. I'm like, okay. She's like, are you guys sleeping with Allie? I was like, yes. And she starts bawling and crying and saying, how could you do this to me? And she gets up and storms off. And then we hear a knock on the door, and it was my dad. And my dad comes in, guns a-blazing. He's like, what are you doing? And he's swearing at everybody, saying some really, really harsh words. And so he proceeded to just yell at us and be upset with us for a while until he stormed out. And then my ex-stepmom called me, and she said that we had until the end of the week, which was 4 days, to tell all of our employers, to tell the rest of our families, to tell our pastor, and to tell everyone else, or else she was gonna do it.
She had in her words, a spiritual obligation to tell the close people in our lives that we were essentially living this life of sin. She also threatened to call CPS because in her mind, this non-traditional lifestyle that we had adopted was spiritual abuse to our daughter.
And it was really hard because for a long time there, I didn't have anybody. And I relied on your parents because they were the only ones that stayed.
Yeah, and my parents struggled with it. My dad's very old school, and they're old school Pentecostal, Assemblies of God Christians. And I grew up in a very hellfire brimstone kind of church. And my dad, surprisingly, was much calmer than I expected. I expected disappointment, I expected anger, I expected hostility, and we didn't get that. And I was genuinely shocked. And he told me, these words, and they ring true to this day. And that was, I'm sad for you, not because of the life you've chosen, but because the world is cruel. And people will not understand this. And you've chosen a hard life. And I'm worried for you, son.
I came out to my family as polyamorous in this past year. I had come out to my mom and my siblings as bisexual a few years ago, and I, at the time, was dating a male partner. And what I didn't tell her is that while I was dating him, I was also dating women as well. She's tried to understand, she tries not to be judgmental, same with the rest of my family, or they will say that they don't judge me, that they'll say they love me no matter what. But people are afraid of the things that they don't understand because it makes them question their own reality, I suppose. I think a lot of people first question, like, oh, jealousy, like what's, aren't you jealous of your partners? Like, how do you deal with that? And I think a lot of people assume that jealousy is one of the biggest factors in being polyamorous.
Kind of an interesting thing that happens, and I think it comes to this concept of compersion, which is this concept that you find joy in your partner experiencing joy, whether that's through loving other people and receiving that love back, or sexual pleasure, or whatever that may be.
I'd have maybe, I don't know if it's jealousy, but I'd be like, oh man, Berk's going on so many dates, I want to go on dates, and then I think about it, I'm like, that's actually not what I want. I think I'm just kind of have that FOMO too, and then when I think about it, I'm like, well, he's going on all these dates because he has all this love to give, and it's making him really happy, and I wouldn't be happy doing that, so it makes me happy that you can do that and have that.
Or I work on Saturdays and they're home together with the kid on Saturdays, and on one hand I can be jealous and be upset of, well, they're spending all this time together, I don't get that time. Or I can be thankful that my partners are strengthening their relationship, they're building their dynamic, they're building their love, and they're deepening it and strengthening it, which in turn benefits us all on a whole.
It's not a matter of one person being less than and one person being better than. It's just that people are different, and we all have different qualities and things to give in relationships.
There are big benefits though of having a 3-person dynamic, because there's things that Sabrina and Allie like to do together that I don't like to do. I'm very much, I'm not a shopper. I don't like to go clothes shopping. I need clothes, I go in, I get them, I get out. I don't like to spend that much time. Sabrina is not into video games at all, but Allie and I kind of share that as something that we both enjoy doing.
Yeah, ultimately, I want to be happy, and I want Daley to be happy, and I think she feels exactly the same about herself and me. So just accepting that, and there's nothing personal about it. I don't need to take offense if she wants to go and do something with friends, and that's what Daley wants to do. That's rad. Yeah, we'll always have an open invite for each other, but with that comes the expectation that it's not an obligation at all.
And one of the things about polyamory I loved is the tag team effort on it. I would be going through something, and it wasn't really about my relationship with you or it was this is going through my head, and these are the emotions, and my husband's trying to listen, and all of a sudden he's like, yeah, and you could see the saturation point. Or maybe I couldn't because I was emotionally there. Literally, to have my other partner walk up to my husband, go, tag team, I'm in. And he hit him in the hand, and he'd get up and he'd go away, and my other partner would sit down, and I'd continue on. So it's all the support, half the trouble.
There's all of these wonderful dynamics that exist within polyamory with families and with additional partners that create these familial units that really create community. There's been times in our relationships where both Chris and I were dating separate people. One of them was sick, and so Chris decided to make some soup and handmade bread, and we went to the store and got this cute little basket, and we put together this little gift basket for each other's partners. I think that there's kind of this reciprocal effect, right? Where it's okay, I can love other people, and that love kind of comes back, and you're able to experience it within, this dynamic that we have within our own marriage and our relationship too. So it's kind of, I love that it's kind of cyclical in that way.
I'd lived here for 7 years and literally had 4 friends that I thought I could be completely open and honest with, because everyone else was so, I don't want to say repressed, but they hide. Everyone is in the closet down here about something, I swear. So you just never feel like you can just be open about something. You have to know someone for years and years. And I'd been living up in Salt Lake where I'd had a huge ton of friends and relationships. And I'm like, I can't move down there. This will not be a good place for me. We were just talking about it. I mean, maybe if I were to start a community down there, and they're like, well, that's a great idea. Why don't you do it? Back then with Facebook, if you were a secret group, because I knew one thing, I knew it had to be a secret group because everyone's in the closet. So how do you know to even ask to be in a group that you don't know exists unless you meet someone that's willing to just, hi, my name's Jackie and I'm polyamorous. How are you? So it really was coming down to being comfortable. I just had to steel myself that I knew I was going to have to be the poster child for PDA. And once we started, it just kept growing and growing and growing. Most of our conversations at our poly coffees have nothing to do with polyamory. It's about normal everyday life where you don't have to explain why you're with person B instead of person A. And then someone says, so tell me, how does that work? After doing this for 30 years, I'm like, can I just, email you a copy later? Can we just talk about, like photography or nature or the other things we were talking about to get to be friends? We've created a great community, and it's always been about community for me. My whole life is about building a family, and my whole concept was I want to build a family that is not dysfunctional. You're there not because you're forced to be family, but because they're your chosen family.
So much of this is about community, and it's about supporting one another. It's about having this network of care and love, and we shouldn't be limiting the way that we love. I would love to raise kids at some point, and I think it'd be really rewarding and exciting to do that, and I would love to raise kids in a polyamorous household.
Emery was born, Sabrina held her, I held her, Allie held her. And it's all she's ever known. To her, she's just always had 3 parents.
Ever since she was born, we always taught her to be kind and open to everyone, and that love is love, and you don't have to love only one person. You can love more than one person. As long as you feel that love for them, that's what matters.
We're good people, and we're gonna raise good kids, and everybody's gonna love them. She's awesome.
If we can just find ways to normalize things that are like historically non-traditional, like what is tradition, like what are, like, why do we ascribe to these things that have just been forced on us for like eons of time now? Like, no, like the world is so varied and life is so varied and the human experience is so varied that like there's endless ways of thinking about life and forming frameworks for how we live.
I'm not saying that polyamory is the answer or that it's like the right way or the best way of doing things. I just know that I want it to be an option.
If you find that polyamory works for you, go. If you find monogamy works for you, go. Just enjoy it. Don't feel like you have to be one thing or the other.
I would just ask that people maybe just investigate a little bit harder for themselves and be honest.
Themselves.
Yeah, be honest with yourself. It's
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, it's okay to be attracted to multiple people. It's okay to love multiple people. Like, there is nothing inherently wrong with it. Like, humans create all of these different systems and structures, and we place emphasis or morality or ethics or like good or bad on all of these systems, but like, where does that come from? And like, if you deconstruct it, like, how does it look?
What we do today is setting the groundwork for what the next generations have to live with. So I want it to be set in a manner that they feel their lives can be happy and that they can choose a life that best fits them without being forced into a mold of someone else's creation. So that's what I would hope, that polyamory is just seen as a viable option and that you get to define it all for yourself.